Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We've had him on before, learned so much about the paranormal world, and we're going to learn more today, I know for sure. And he's taken us through a journey of investigations into different locations, photos that showed what looked like orbs. One of my favorite things about him, aside from his approach, is he'll debunk something. It's not like everything is, there's an orb. No, it's not. That's a light. Come on, throw that picture away. It's a part of what he does. He's based in North Carolina, but does investigations in many different areas. Dustin Crowley joins us here on the program. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Steve.
Yeah, wonderful you're back. As we dig into all of this stuff, the difference between the things you investigate, I want to look at that for everybody today.
Okay.
When we say a haunted investigation, how do you define haunted? If it could be demonic, how would you define that? We have a picture of it, from the non-paranormal side. How would you look at it?
So some of the easy ones there is haunted. So basically, if there is paranormal activity, something that you can witness, measure, what have you, I would call that haunted, because whether it's a spirit, a residual haunting, basically like a spirit living out its final moments on repeat, something intelligent that can interact with you, or whether it's something maybe more Native American, maybe something more tied to the land or whatever. So pretty broad. But then you also get into the concept of something being demonic. And with my experience, I've been a practicing demonologist for quite a while. I'm a practicing exorcist. And so I get a lot of people that will reach out and say something's haunted, especially, or not haunted, but demonic. And that usually happens, especially when some big horror movie comes out. So it's always interesting to go into places that people claim have demonic presences, but it usually is not the case.
When we say haunted, is that really a bad thing?
I don't think so. I mean, we always get like this Disney version of haunted where
like a ghost, woo, scary, and
like we think like Dr. Facilier's trying to steal our soul at every corner.
And look, by the way, side digression here. That looks like my cat just showed up. He looks just like that. Oh, my cat really does look like your cat.
Well, this is King Tut.
Huh?
He has a knack. Anytime a camera's on,
he shows up. Yeah, he's a star.
Yep,
got to be in the spotlight. Yeah. So
right. Yeah, I don't think it's bad to be haunted. I mean, the spirits, by and large, are benevolent the majority of the time. I mean, it's just kind of like if you think, how often do you really run into someone that's truly evil? How often do you run into someone that's truly good? There's always, majority of people are in the middle.
Is there something that they want? Like when you determine that it's a haunted situation, are the spirits just wanting to communicate, send a message? Is that really what's going on here? For good or for bad? And can something haunted be good?
I would say most of the time they just want to be remembered. They want to tell their story. I mean, not to mention another Disney movie, but it's kind of like Coco. They just want to be remembered.
Okay.
That being said, sometimes they do come to watch over you. I had a private investigation very recently, and we determined that the main spirit of the home that was following around this little boy was his great grandfather. And he was just watching over him, making sure he was safe.
Wow.
So, and going into that, obviously, you get the call, I think that there is a spirit following around my son. And the son was pretty young. So we're like, oh crap, okay. Let's cancel any other project we've got going on. This is now a priority. And then you go in, and luckily it's something really kind of sweet and genuine.
And we called it haunted, but it's a positive message that wanted to get through. So demonic, always call it evil. Would we assume that?
Yes, for the most part. I mean, again, if you come across a demonic entity, 99.9% of the time, it's very bad.
Hmm.
And that other small sliver of the time is if you are encountering someone who practices a certain sect of occultism, that they can essentially summon and harness and control the powers of certain demonic entities for various beneficial purposes. But you don't see people like that often, because you shouldn't. It's very, very dangerous. And for safety, I won't even say what that particular sect within the occult is.
Have you sensed a demonic presence in a location that you were called to investigate? And number one, have you? Number two, did you walk away from it saying, I'm not going in there. This is just, I'm not gonna, it doesn't feel right.
So in a way, I was called in for an exorcism consultation a few years ago, and this particular client was in fact dealing with a demonic entity.
Hmm.
Now, that being said, I recently was at a convention, and on one of the paranormal panels, me as well as another peer of mine from Charlotte, North Carolina, we were kind of discussing what percentage of the time do we get called in for demonic cases, and it's actually demonic.
Hmm.
And it was, I want to say 0.38% of the time.
Say that
So
number again. I want to make sure I have it clear.
0.38%
Of when something is investigated that it turns out to be legitimately demonic.
of specifically when we're called in because of claims of demonic.
Okay.
So if you included just, I think my house is haunted, that number would go down significantly.
Wow. Wow. Again, a very small number.
So
Extremely.
like I'm not gonna lie. It even the other person, her name is Tina McSwain. She is the founder of the Charlotte Area Paranormal Society. And when me and her were talking, we were both kind of astonished that one, our numbers were very similar, and two, that it was that low. We didn't expect it to be high. I mean, we've both been in the field for quite a long time, but we didn't expect it would be less than half of 1%.
Hmm. Yeah. Wow. I'm actually shocked too. I would think it would be maybe even 0.5, not 0.0. Amazing. Wow. What messages have you gotten during an investigation? A spirit had a message to be delivered to someone. Can you be the conduit there?
So there's a lot of ethics involved. I can be the conduit if I'm given a message by someone within the spirit realm. I can take it to that person. However, there's a lot at play, especially when you think of trauma and abuse that people may have gone through at the hands of people that have passed on. And the last thing you want to do is maybe tell someone, hey, your dad has a message. He said he's going to always be with you. But their father was abusive and narcissistic, and it was a very bad relationship that this person maybe fled from. So you can, but you got to know a lot of other details before just blindly going out there, because sometimes it can do more harm than good.
Wow. Mm. I give you a lot of credit because it's almost as if you dive into the water when you go into an investigation. That's what it appears to be, but is it really? Do you do extensive research, background on the location, the history, all of that before you do anything?
I've got team members that do. Um, I don't personally. I mean, within reason, there's sometimes when you go into a place and you know the history. Uh, like especially when we go to what some people in the field call pay to play locations. Think Trans Allegheny, Waverly Hills, the Conjuring House, the big places that you pay to go and investigate. Um, Even if I don't research a place like that, you know the history.
Mm.
Or if you go into a place that used to be a hospital, if you go into a place that used to be a prison, if you go into a place that used to be a school, I don't have to research to know certain things happened on those locations. I may not know names, I may not know time periods, but like if it's a school, people got bullied, people formed close relationships, people formed mentorships. There's a lot of interpersonal connection going on. If it's a hospital, there's a lot of death involved. There's a lot of separation from families, whether that be through death or someone is in a coma, they have a disease that they have to be separated from. It's usually very
Mm.
sad, very powerful. So I try to go in as blind as possible, but again, it's just not always really relevant.
Do you believe that everything is energy?
Yes.
So that being said, I do too. And we're energy. Energy's around us. I believe when somebody passes, their energy is around us, even though their human container, if you will, isn't. With an eye on that, how do you, after an investigation, cleanse yourself of what could be negative energy?
So the best way to cleanse yourself is not to have an attachment. And I, depending on, especially on the place I'm going, I usually do either a decent amount or a lot of spiritual protection going in, just making sure that I'm well aware of my senses, um, doing a little bit of meditation, grounding, stuff like that. Um, because when you know yourself, you know when something is not your own thought, when this is not your own feeling.
Hmm.
I shouldn't react to something this way. And then you can separate yourself from the situation. But afterwards, there are several cleansing techniques that I use. Again, I will just recenter, reground. Um, I will practice the technique of earthing, which is basically grounding, except doing it barefoot on soil of some type,
Hmm.
you know, being actually physically present on the earth. And another thing is a ritual bath or a ritual shower. Just using that to physically and metaphysically wash away anything that could be tied to you.
So I believe in that so much that right now, and then, by the way, I don't do paranormal investigations, nor do I know how to, but my feet are on a grounding mat.
Nice.
Not even kidding. $20, you buy it on Amazon, and it's connected to the ground lug on any electrical outlet. And that connects to earth, which is ground. You could do the same thing if you hug a tree, but I'm sitting here, so what the heck not? I believe it can't hurt. And we're in a better place when we're grounded. So that was my concern. If you were dealing with that energy in an investigation, that could be potentially dangerous, I guess.
Oh yeah, and not everyone is as good at grounding and centering as everyone else. It's definitely a skill and a technique that you have to learn and hone over the years.
Mm.
And some people are receptive to techniques and teachings that I might give in person, and some people are not. But it's one of those things where if you keep having to come to me and say, hey, I just left this place and I feel like I'm overwhelmed. Hey, maybe we should talk more about meditation.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's also some people that are more predisposed to being open to something like that. Um, for example, I've got a team member. She had cancer several years ago, and she is very prone to having spiritual attachments right at the place where her port was.
Wow.
And
Wow.
is there maybe something that she could do to help keep that from happening? Maybe. But
Hmm.
she's always going to have essentially this direct line going straight to her heart. So it's a little bit more complicated.
Um, what do you say to somebody who says to you, I think my place is haunted, or I think that place is haunted? What are some of the first things that somebody should consider if they think they're in a location that has spirits or that some communication is going on?
Well, the first thing is, yeah, know yourself. If it's a place you're living in, are you physically different than how you were at the previous place you lived? And then is there any way that you can logically explain that? Like, do you now live directly beside a river? Do you now live beside a high voltage power line? These are
Hmm.
things that can change how you sleep, how you just process emotions. If everything's essentially the same, what's going on? What type of emotions are you feeling? Does it make
Hmm.
you think of anything in particular? Like, oh, this is the feeling I always got when I was around my Uncle John. And then just trying to do some research on your own. Of course, you can always reach out to a local paranormal team or an investigator, and most of us will be more than happy to come in and help.
Hmm.
But it's always kind of hard if you don't know all of the signs. And for most of us, we spend years studying and training, and it's kind of difficult because there's not like paranormal university. You can't just go to school for this. You have to read an extensive library of books. I mean, you can see one of my library shelves behind me. It's pretty much stacked. If it
And tr
didn't slope up at the top and I could actually fit books on the top, I'd have more stuff there. Um, it's just, I guess, more or less trial and error.
and also, I guess, trusting the source of the stuff you read. There's a lot of stuff out there, after time, I'm sure that you've gotten to the point where you're comfortable about an author or where this information.
So trusting your sources is, I would say, kind of a dicey thing in the paranormal because within reason, there are some titles that you can just claim. So, for example, I am a demonologist or a demonologist. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that existed.
People, if you just study demonic folklore, whether that be extensive or not, you can now claim to be a demonologist. Now, that being said, unlike me, you don't necessarily have to have a degree in theology. You don't have to have been a practicing minister. You don't have to read from various different faith backgrounds. You don't have to network with other published authors within the field. You can just do the bare minimum, claim the title, and now people may reach out to you because, oh, well, I'm a self-proclaimed demonologist. I'm a self-proclaimed psychic medium. Um, and sometimes it's hard to truly vet some of these people. So
Hmm.
the easiest is to find trusted scholarly sources. Um, so I know, for example, the Association of Paranormal um, APS. What is the S? I don't know.
Society?
Maybe. Look up Alex Matsuo. She is the founder or president of APS. And I apologize, Alex, for not knowing what the acronym fully stands for. It's probably because I'm on camera. But they are actually putting on a paranormal symposium in Gettysburg soon. And unlike some of your average conventions, in order to be at the symposium as a speaker, you have to have a published work in a peer-reviewed journal. So when they are gathering experts, they're not just saying, okay, well, you've held a lot of, investigations, or you've worked for this location, so you probably know what you're doing. You're pulling stuff together. You're learning how to most likely use Chicago-style formatting. You're citing your sources. You're having references. It's being reviewed by peers. Those are, as best as I could describe an expert in our field, because I don't think anyone can truly be an expert, those are experts.
Have you ever been afraid?
For myself, no. For others, yes. Given all of my background, I have both a theoretical and a practical knowledge on how to handle myself with most spiritual things. So when it comes to me, I don't really have many concerns. That being said, hey, if we go on a Bigfoot hunt, I don't know what I'm going to do if I see a Bigfoot. If a UFO lands in front of me, I got nothing. But when it comes to a ghost or a spirit or an Elam or an elemental demon, whatever the case, and that's not saying that they're all walks in the park. I mean, obviously, if I encounter another demonic entity, which I probably will in my lifetime, it's serious. It's a lot of work, but I'm still relatively confident in myself and my training, and knowing that if I do need assistance, I've got a network of people I can reach out to.
Wow. I don't know how you do what you do. Just even thinking about all this stuff, or situations where I think I might have been somewhere where there could have been some presence. I have jitters about it. I don't want, that's why we call you. But I guess it comes down to the training, the experience, all of that, where you have that confidence in yourself to know that, what we're dealing with here is not something you should be concerned with. I know you mentioned once before you were concerned for your mom in a situation like that. Dustin, how do we find you? How does somebody reach out? Let's say they've got a question, maybe want an investigation. How do they find you?
Well, you can follow me on my official Facebook page at the Dustin Crowley. You can also follow Great State Paranormal on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also reach me at greatstateparanormal.com.
Thank you for these podcasts that we've spent time on, learning about all this process and what's going on, reassuring that there are people like you that you're there if somebody's got questions or need, some deeper investigation, if you will, and truly appreciate it. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Steve.
We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.